In the last session, we have discussed some of the issues in distributed system design. Remaining issues we can discuss in this session. Now, coming to the flexibility issue, the design of a distributed system should be flexible because of two different reasons. One is ease of modification, and second one is ease of enhancement. Ease of modification in the sense, it is always a requirement that some part of a design need to be replaced or modified either because some bug is detected or the design is no longer suitable for the new environment or new user requirements. So there should be, it should be easy to incorporate changes in the system in a user transparent manner or with minimum interruption caused to the user. So ease of enhancement, new functionalities have to be added from time to time to make it more powerful and easy to use. So it should be easy to add new services to the system design. The most important designing factor that influences the flexibility of a distributed system is the model used for designing the kernel. As you know, the kernel is a central controlling part that provides basic system facilities. So two commonly approached or commonly used models are there for kernel design. Those are microkernel and monolithic kernel. So in the case of monolithic kernel, the OS provides services such as process management, memory management, device management, everything will be provided by the operating system. So as a result, the kernel will be very large. Every services will be provided by the operating system itself. Kernel will be very large and it will have a monolithic structure. So those operating systems which are extensions of this Unix will be following this type of structure. Whereas in case of microkernel structure, the main goal is to keep the kernel as small as possible. So only very small or very limited functionality will be provided by the operating system. So very small nucleus of software that provides minimum facilities like inter-process communication, low-level device management, limited amount of other process management, etc. will be provided by the microkernel. Other services will be implementable using the facility provided by the kernel. As compared to this monolithic kernel model, the microkernel model has several advantages. In the case of monolithic kernel model, the large size of the kernel reduces the overall flexibility and configurability of the resulting operating system. On the other hand, the resulting OS in the case of microkernel model is highly modular. Due to this, the OS of the microkernel model is easy to design, implement and install. Also, it is very easy to modify the design or to add new services. So we can say that this microkernel design is always flexible compared to monolithic structure. However, this microkernel model have its own performance penalty also. This is because microkernel model, each server is an independent process because every service will be as a separate process or something like that. So each service will be in a separate server which is having its own address space. Therefore, the servers have to use some forms of message-based interprocess communication mechanism to communicate with each other while performing some job. And also the message passing between the server processes and microkernel requires context switches because these additional services are implemented as user processes. So context switch will be required for communication between the microkernel and the server processes. This will create an additional performance overhead. Whereas in case of monolithic kernel mode, all the services are provided by the kernel itself, right? So they are sharing the same address space. So there is no message passing or context switching required in the case of monolithic. Now the next design issue is performance. So if a distributed system is to be used, its performance must be at least as good as the centralized system, right? That is, when a particular application is run on a distributed system, its overall performance should be better than or at least equal to that of running the same application on a single processor system. Anyway, to achieve this goal, it is important that various components of this distributed operating system be designed properly. Otherwise, the overall performance of the system may turn out to be worse than a centralized system. So we can see what are the different design principles which can be opted for better performance. First one is batch if possible. So batching often helps in improving the performance greatly. For example, transfer of data across the network can be in large chunks rather than individual pages. Like that, piggybacking also can be used for acknowledgement of previous messages with the next message during a series of messages. Like that, wherever possible, apply the batching mechanism that can be used to improve the performance. Next one is cache whenever possible. So caching of data at client sides frequently improve the overall system performance because it makes the data available wherever it is being currently used, thus saving the large amount of computing time and network bandwidth. In addition, this caching reduces contention of centralized resources. Next, minimize the copying of data. So actually data copying is an overhead because we can see an example of suppose the data is being transferred from its sender to receiver. So the message data may take the following path at the sender side, like from sender stack to its message buffer, from the message buffer in the sender's address space to the message buffer in the kernel's address space, finally from the kernel to the network interface board. This much copying is taking place in the sender side itself. On the receiving side also, this much path is there in the reverse direction. Therefore, in this case, a total of 6 copy operations are involved in the message transfer operation. Similarly, in several systems, data copying overhead is also large for read and write operations on block I/O devices. Therefore, for better performance, it is desirable to avoid copying data, although this is not always simple to achieve. So, making optimal use of memory management often helps in eliminating much data movement between kernel, block I/O devices, clients, servers, etc. Now, another design principle is to reduce the minimize the network traffic. So, how will you reduce the network traffic? One example we can say that suppose a process want to access a remote resource. So obviously this communication or resource access will be through a communication, possibly through a set of intermediate nodes. So migrate that process to a node closer to the resources it is most heavily using. Thereby we can reduce the traffic. Another way or another example is that cluster two or more processes that are frequently communicate with each other into a single node. So thereby we can again reduce the network traffic. Also we can improve the performance by taking the advantage of parallelism or multiprocessing. Just for example, threads are often used for structuring server processes. So servers structured as a group of threads can operate efficiently because they can simultaneously service requests from several clients. Now the next design issue is scalability. So scalability refers to the capability of a system to adapt to increased service load, right? So in the case of distributed system, it's definitely inevitable to support the scalability because it is very common to grow the system with time or to add new machines or an entire sub-network may be added to the existing system. So distributed system should be designed to easily cope with the growth of nodes and also growth of number of users. And the thing is that it should not cause serious disruption of service or significant loss of performance for the existing system. So we have to follow some design principles to support the scalability. First one is that avoid centralized entities. So maximum possible avoid centralized entities such as central files, a single central file server or a single database or for the entire system, which makes the distributed system non-scalable. Why it become non-scalable? Because of the following reasons. First one is that it brings the entire system down. That is, failure of the centralized entity often brings the entire system down. So hence the system cannot tolerate faults in a graceful manner. Performance becomes a bottleneck. That is, when contention is for the increases with growing number of users, all traffic will be to the centralized server, which again creates a performance bottleneck. And next, the capacity of the networks becomes saturated. So even if the centralized entity has enough processing and storage capacity, the capacity of the network becomes saturated when the contention for the entity increases beyond a certain level. So beyond that, the capacity of the network will be underutilized. And finally, WAN consisting of many LANs the traffic increases. That is, in a wide area network consisting of several interconnected local area networks, it is obviously inefficient to always get a particular type of request service at a server node. That is several gateways away. So this is also increase the network traffic. Another design principle is to avoid centralized algorithms. The centralized algorithm is one that operates by collecting information from other nodes, processing this information on a single node, and then distributing the results to other nodes. So such algorithms are not acceptable for a distributed system from a scalability point of view. So all the problems with the centralized entity we have already discussed holds here also. So this type of algorithm may be suitable for a small network, but it is not at all apt for very large networks. And the third design principle is to perform most of the operations on client workstations. So if possible, an operation should be performed on the client's own workstation rather than on a server machine. This is because a server is a common resource, right? It is accessed by several clients, and hence server cycles are more precious than cycles of a client workstation. So caching is a frequently used technique for realization of this principle. Now coming to the next issue, that is heterogeneity. So distributed system is definitely heterogeneous in terms of both dissimilar hardware or software systems. And this property is inevitable in case of distributed systems. Furthermore, often heterogeneity is preferred by many users because heterogeneous distributed system provides the flexibility to their users of different computer platform for different applications. So a lot of incompatibilities will be there in a distributed system because of this heterogeneity. Different types of incompatibilities can be there. For example, internal formatting schemes of different communication in different communication and host processes may be different. Or when several networks are interconnected via gateways, the communication protocols and topologies used by different networks may be different. Like that, lot of incompatibilities will be there. So in a distributed system, some form of data translation will be required. So in earlier systems, this translation was left as part of end users. That is, and the data translation job may be performed either at the sender's node or at the receiver's node. The problem here is that if the system consists of k different machine types, each user systems require k-1 translation software, which definitely will degrade the performance of the system. So it's better to move this translation into some other nodes, or some other techniques should be used. So the software complexity of this translation process can be greatly reduced by using an intermediate standard format. So in this method, an intermediate standard data format is declared, and each node only requires a translation software for converting from its own format to the standard format, and also from the standard format to its own format. So in this case, when two incompatible nodes interact at the sender node, the data to be sent is first converted into the standard format. The data is moved in the format of the standard, and finally at the receiver node, the data is converted from the standard format back to the receiver's format. Now coming to the security issue. So definitely the system should be trustable, and various resources of a computer system must be protected against distractions and unauthorized access. So enforcing security in a distributed system is much more difficult than in a centralized system, because definitely there is a lack of single point of control, and the use of insecure networks and data communication is also there. In the case of a centralized system, all users are authenticated by the system at the login time, right? And the system can easily check whether the user is authorized or not. But in case of distributed system, we are using a client-server model. So when a client requests for a service, the server should know who is the client, or identity of the client should be revealed. But this is not simple, because a lot of problems or security issues are there. There can be some intruder who may pretend to be an authorized client, or the message may be changed by an intruder. Therefore, as compared to a centralized system, enforcing security in a distributed system has some additional requirement, like sender should know that the message was received by the intended receiver. Receiver should know that the message was sent by the genuine sender, and it should be possible for the both sender and receiver to be guaranteed that the contents of the messages were not changed. So cryptography is the only non-practical method for dealing with these security aspects in a distributed system.